Hello everyone, in this video I will show you how to fuck up your master so it sounds like piece of total crap, and we will follow simple steps and I will show you how to do it in the best way possible. In my particular case, when it comes to my first track, the first release, it was mastered in the, let's say, high-end studio in the UK, and the sound was pretty good. And in this particular case, in the second track, I decided I will do the master myself, which was a very big mistake, because although I have relatively good equipment at home, I do not have any room acoustics, and I did all the mistakes you should try to avoid. So I will go through these mistakes and I will show you how bad the track sounds, you know. Yeah, but it's not that bad, you know. But when I loaded the track after it was released and after I sent it to all DJs in the universe, then I realized that compared to other tracks, it's too dark and maybe it made sound a bit too compressed. But I think that some of the DJs actually appreciated the sound. Well, the track was so far played by DJ Lee Romank and Antodesks in the Dance Vibes radio show. And I think that they took the compression even to a next level. I don't know what they did with the track, but it sounds compressed like shit, you know. It's like it's like techno track from 2000s, you know, with a voice over it. But it sounds really okay, you know, in this particular setup. So I think that they understood the idea and they took it one level up. And I'm really grateful that they did it. So thank you guys. Okay, so let's get a bit more serious. I think that I exaggerated it a bit. I think that the master is still pretty solid. But when I compared it to other tracks, when I loaded it to my DDJ 1000 and when I wanted to play a little DJ set at home only just for fun, I realized that the track is maybe a bit too dark and a bit too compressed. But the sound is not horrible, you know, it's just acceptable, I would say. Some even might say that it sounds a bit warmer because the mid bass frequencies are a bit too exaggerated maybe, and I focused on the bass, but compared with other tracks it's darker. So yeah, so it wasn't a particularly good job, but I have to take into account that I do not have any acoustic treatment in my living room actually. So that's why the track sounded like this, I guess. But I will anyway go through all the steps I did, and maybe I will point out two mistakes I made during the process, so you can avoid them in the future. I think in general it's the best way is to have it mastered by someone else. I wouldn't say I lack the technical knowledge to do so, but the acoustics and, let's say, too much attachment to your own ideas and to your own track, I think that it somehow blinds you. So if there's someone who you trust, I think you definitely opt for an external master because it will free your hands and your mind from 1000 adjustments you are going to make. And I think it usually sounds better. But anyway, I will go through all those mistakes I think I made and why the track is not exceptional. It's only good, you know. So that's it. So let's get into it. So I will go through my mastering chain. I think the chain is pretty standard. The first thing I put on the master is a bass compressor. When I play the track, you will see what it does. You see that the needle barely moves. This is the way I think some really solid studios do it. It glues the sounds together and makes the track a bit more cohesive. Then I have an Oxford inflator after solid bass compressor, or basically a clone of Oxford inflator created by one member of the Reaper community. It sounds, and I think it works really well. It adds some saturation to the signal. It sounds reasonably good. Then I have a multiband compressor on the master. I use it in a way that I saw in one of the tutorials made by a really high-end studio. They use it in order to highlight the details in the track. Everything sounds a bit more sharper, and it brings out the detail out of the mix. And you do not use any like extreme settings. You set it only to 10% of the wet signal. And in the break parts, you basically raise the compression by increasing the VIBEZ signal to, I don't know, 70, 80, in my case 100%. And it means that in this passage, which is a break passage and the second break passage, these are the parts of the track which are usually lower volume than the rest of the track. And if you don't want the volume to drop too much, then you basically raise the VIBEZ settings in the multiband compressor. And what it does is that it balances out the amount of, let's say, power you have in the verse and in the main drop. So the difference is not that big, you know. It sounds like so this part of the track, the break sounds a bit lower volume. It still retains reasonably high amount of detail, so it doesn't disbalance the whole track. So this is how it's done. So I'll automate the VIBEZ signal here. The output stays the same, I would say. So this is how I use the multiband compressor, and I think that this is the way high-end studios use it, at least as far as I know. Then I use something which is called two-stage compression. The philosophy of two-stage compression is that basically you use one slow compressor and one fast compressor. The slow compressor basically provides the factor, meaning that it makes everything rich, but it lacks details, you know. So it adds boominess and wideness, strength to the mix, but it's not as good when it comes to tiny details and transients, let's say, because it's too slow. So the Pro L compressor is set to be slower than Ozone compressor, so I use Pro L as a first stage of compression and Ozone 10 as the second stage of compression, which is faster. But the first mistake I did was that I didn't set L2 compressor to slow settings. I think that this is still pretty fast. So it doesn't, how to say that, it compresses the signal a bit too much. And when it comes to Ozone, I think that this is the right settings. When I play the track, you will see what each of the compressors do and how it behaves. When I lower the volume so you hear my voice, you see that the compressor doesn't work really hard, that the compression level is around like -2 dB. So you don't want the compressor to work too hard. You just see that we are just cutting off the biggest transitions here. So the L2 compressor feeds the signal without huge transients into the Ozone compressor, and Ozone compressor doesn't need to work that hard, you know. So we have like two compressors and each of them works moderately hard. And the purpose of this setup is to have a full sound without it sounding too compressed, you know. So that's the basic idea. If you know how to properly do it, which I do, but I don't have any acoustic treatment on anything, so I ended up with something that might have sounded a bit too compressed. But yeah, so that's the underlying idea behind it. And I aimed at -7 loops when it comes to volume. I think that I kept it. So yeah, I think that, you know, the mastering is not that awful. It sounds relatively solid, but next time I would maybe prefer to send it to someone else for mastering. But it was a nice try, you know. So I tried it, and this is the result. So then when it comes to some general remarks regarding mastering, I think that if you are a producer who is on a limited budget, which I am to some extent when it comes to these like services, I think that it's good if you do it yourself. But it also depends on many other factors. I think that the first factor would be how complex music you are producing, basically. I think that if you do something like minimal techno or stuff that has basically 3 or 4 sounds in it, then it's pretty easy to master it because you don't have any clashing sounds in the mix, and it's basically way easier to do that. And I think that compressed sound doesn't hurt the track that much, and there is not like too many transients to fight with each other, so it's easier. And I think that artists who are really like world known and popular, and those who really big teams and big budgets, I think that they even have their tracks mixed and then mastered. So they do only the composition, and mixing is done by someone else. So they send the tracks just for mix. So there is someone who takes all the stems from these artists, and they improve each individual track so it sounds the best as it could. And sometimes these studios do the master, but I think that in many cases they send it to another person who does only the master. So you have like two separate people working on the mix and on the master. So, for example, Purple Disco Machine mentions this process in his studio feed or studio input, that he is not involved in the final adjustments of the mix and of the master, that he just tests the track in the club and then sends it to for mix and master. So realistically, if you are sitting in your own studio, and if you want to achieve this level of like perfection of high level commercial artists, I think that I would like to wish you good luck, because because it's a bit too much for one person. If you are producing music which is a bit more complex and it sounds musical and combines like many instruments together, this is a difficult stuff to do, and you need a lot of time and experience. And even if I think that I have reasonable amount of experience, the let's say it's very demanding process, even if in my case, even if the track is considered as let's say comparable to commercial tracks, let's say, it took me a lot of time to basically master it this way, because I was jumping to the car and back. I can play it loud in the car because I'm not like bothering my neighbors here in the apartment. I don't have a studio, so I've been like I had like 20 versions of the master, and I was listening to it on my speakers, on my headphones, and in the car. I can play it loud in the car, but I was like jumping back and forth, just testing the master, and the result is I would say okay, but it's not exceptional, So if you have the budget, I think that it's quite good to have it mastered in the external studio. And I would say that another factor in all of this is that you really get blind when it comes to your own stuff and your own music. You have a tendency of focusing on individual instruments because you are like so invested in the track. It's like swimming in the water and not seeing yourself from the above. You don't know, you don't see the whole picture because you are too much like you are in too much of a depth into the track, so it makes you blind basically. So when it comes to next videos, I think that I will focus a bit more on the scene itself, how I see it, and what are my chances as the middle-aged irrelevant artist to make a progress in the dance scene. We'll see how it goes, but so far it wasn't that bad, so yeah, thank you for your time, and hope that your masters will be awesome, no matter if you do it yourself or if you send it to someone else, and hopefully see you in the next video.